You're listening to Journey for Truth with internationally known medium, Tai Yi practitioner, and radio host Tami Urbanek.
Hello and welcome to Journey for Truth on Spreaker.com and on YouTube. I am Tami Urbanek. Thank you so much for joining me. Journey for Truth is always on demand.
Thanks for having me, Tami.
Journey for Truth is always on demand and with many new episodes. On my website, empowermentthroughhealing.org, you can look at the different treatments that I offer for life, energy, flow, Tai Yi. One of the treatments that I offer is titled 8th Level of Fearful Anger. That treatment is really for individuals who want to move beyond their anger, and the anger has already gotten to the point of creating physical diseases, heart disease, a variety of issues that come up with holding on to chronic anger. That treatment can help people really begin resolving the anger, but again, only if the person really has a deep desire to. Ken is my guest this week. Ken Scott is my guest this week on Journey for Truth. He is a spiritual author, blogger, and is passionate about helping people move beyond their pain and seeing their true potential. Ken, welcome.
Thank you so much, Tami. Great to be here.
It is great to see you. Now, you've experienced significant life change when you realized what your wife was up to. Now, tell us about that.
Yeah, it goes back a couple of years, several years now. It's, I guess the best way to describe it is pure shock, meaning our relationship was not one where we were fighting or not getting along. It was, at the time, 12 years married, 3 kids. We were together 18 years, and more or less out of left field, fell out of love and pursued something else, and the next thing I knew it was, hey, I think we should talk about how we're going to separate, and it was trying time.
I can imagine. Very, very difficult. How did you overcome the shock and the hurt that you felt?
I think I was lucky to have more than one special person in my life supportively, but one in particular who was my older brother, who has always been a very spiritual guy. We've always talked about A Course in Miracles, and we both started reading that together many years before. Luckily, I had been pursuing spiritual things, loving reading about it, going back to my days at Columbia University. I remember being most intrigued by those types of courses, the philosophy and the history of the world's religions. I just carried that through. So I was kind of pursuing spiritual realms and manifestation and the law of attraction before all of this happened. And when my brother said to me, hey, remember what we've been talking about? This is probably your big challenge, to forgive. And forgiving was, although I know how important it is in life, it was the farthest thing from my mind when I learned of my wife's, new pursuits, if you will. So once I did fully internalize it as something perhaps bigger than me, something that could have eternal ramifications for the kids and everyone else in our lives, who are many at the time after 18 years. Second, I took it as a challenge, a true big forgiveness challenge, maybe the biggest of my life. I put a new spin on it. It made me feel a little bit special. Maybe I had earned it, the challenge that it is, and I said, well, how can I rise to this challenge for Creator, Universe, God, love, and be the best, highest me I can be right now?
That must have been, to me, that would be so difficult to find out that your partner, your spouse is cheating on you, and then decide, well, I'm going to, rise above this. I'm going to find a way to move beyond this. It seemed like such a quick transition. Did you feel like you needed to retaliate at all, as a lot of people many times do?
Yeah. I mean, the impulses that we get at such a time are our human ego kind of fighting through to react and stand up for itself and get even. And I think that if I had not studied and read all that I had, that those impulses would just take over. So when I hear stories, horrible stories about these retaliations or the long drawn out divorces and how the kids get hurt, I can see how that could happen to anyone if that person or the people involved are not really knowledgeable about forgiveness and the power of it, and that eventually, to some degree, we're all going to be challenged to forgive in our lives.
Now you're friends now. You and your ex-spouse are friends now. I can understand getting to a point where, okay, I'm going to move beyond this, I'm going to work on forgiveness. There's that element, which is beautiful. And then there's the element of, well, now we're actually going to be friends. And it's not just you and your ex-spouse, it's a group of you, right? Or her current partner or husband and your partner. Okay, so it's all of you. I mean, how do you get to that point? Because that's even a deeper element of letting go.
Yeah, and that's a great question, because I think a lot of it, or what may have made it easier than other situations to get to that point, was that it was part of the shock too, but it was that our relationship was never contentious. It was never mean and getting back at each other. That, like I said, that there was virtually no fighting, which again made it more of a shock, but also allowed us, I think, to kind of move past it. And, when she saw a certain amount of forgiveness, and it's really a matter of putting yourself and your own concerns, your ego concerns, way in the back, and putting the kids up front and saying, let's do the best for the kids. When you really do that and mean it, which I did, I could see that she saw something a little different in me that maybe she hadn't seen. So then it's just shifted so much. It is truly the power of forgiveness and how it works in ways that you can't really tell, you can't predict, you don't know. All you have to do is have trust that forgiveness is it's the way, it's the light. It brings light into any situation in ways that you could never expect. And the transformation of our relationship from one of romantic and together and we're a couple for 18 years to one of, hey, let's be great buddies, get through this and raise our kids so they are absolutely unaffected and as good as they could possibly be. It's so funny, we're much more of a team now about open school night, and it almost looks silly. I feel silly sometimes, but we are actually going to open school night together and driven there together, and it's you could say it's silly, but then again, it's a team working on their kids.
Your book, Drive Me to Think. What is your book about?
Okay, so yeah, the book came out of a lot of this spiritual and forgiveness reading and pursuit and study. And it was basically, I found myself, it was a bit of self-awareness, and this predates the divorce, thankfully, I think, and where I'm taking the story, that is. So I found myself reading something in the morning before I would commute to work, and then I'd have some kind of CD in the car listening to, something self-help oriented, or attraction oriented and spiritual, and all of it eventually gets to forgiveness and a higher self and letting go. But then I also noticed that very quickly I'd be frustrated at the driver in the left lane who was going too slow. And, this one who tried to, not let me, merge in the unwritten rule of one car go, one car let, that kind of thing. So quickly I saw that, it's not just me. There are a lot of nice people that get in a car and basically turn into some pretty impatient, angry, and even hypocritical types of drivers, where it's okay if you do it, but not so much okay if it happens to you. And I said, well, oof, what is this? So first, I took it as a challenge, okay? And get in the car and get ready to forgive, because I'm in the New York metro area, you're going to get plenty of opportunities right away to forgive folks.
Exactly.
I think impatient and frantic and not so caring way. So I would say, first thing, get ready to forgive. And I couldn't. And I looked forward to the first thing I got to forgive, and sure enough, I forgive it. So I said, let me replace whatever frustration. I'm getting proud of myself. Let me replace that frustration with thinking about the things I want to happen in my life. The law of attraction. Let me fill that vacuum with a bit of, bringing the positive into life. So as I started doing that and it started working, I said, ooh, this might be something. One, I saw, if you read about separation at all in A Course in Miracles, which is how we came to the body from a perfect spiritual state, if you will. I said, it seems like we're going through a second level of separation from pretty nice person going through life, having a career, having kids, caring, even charitable, to getting in the car and kind of forgetting that about ourselves and even that about the potential of other people to be just that way. And I said, this sounds like a great topic for a book, and then off I went.
So you're connecting the concept of driving and how people become very impatient and judgmental and angry to how that can mirror in a person's life in different ways?
Yeah, in fact, I call it the perfect divine practice ground, which is that if you acknowledge that in yourself, that you become a bit of a more impatient person behind the wheel, you find yourself, getting into little tips over this or that, then it is then a perfect daily practice ground to rise above, find your higher self. Practice this, which it goes into in the book. Practice feeling the frustration rise and saying no to it. I'm not going to allow that. It's beneath me. My higher self doesn't get into little tips with other nice people that are just, a little bit in a rush or not. And then replace that, because you don't want to bury frustration either, but then replace that or let that remind you of the vision that you might have about your goals, what you want to do in your life, that kind of thing.
That makes a lot of sense, because I agree with what you're getting to, in that when a person gets behind a wheel and they're in the privacy of their own car, they can allow all of these different energies, if you will, release. Their anger, their impatience, their frustration. Whereas you go to a grocery store and you can't act like that. You can't go up to a checkout line and say, oh, you're so slow, get out of my way. People think that, but it's not politically correct. It's not socially sensitive to actually do that. But when you're in the privacy of your car, it just all comes out. And so it sounds like you're asking people to take that concept of, what are you doing when you think you're alone and no one's watching? And is that really some areas of concern that need to be addressed? Because it doesn't feel very good to feel frustrated. It doesn't feel good to be angry. It doesn't feel good to be impatient.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. So 2 points, and I guess let me start with the former. Is that no, it doesn't feel good. If we took a deep breath and thought about the decision in front of us when someone did something to us apparently on the road, and our normal thing would be kind of ride up closer to let them know we're frustrated, that kind of thing. If we thought about that decision right there, said, well, one, I'm letting frustration happen. And two, I'm getting potentially into a conflict with someone I know nothing about. And three, I could actually just sit here and allow this to remind myself to be concentrating on the things that make me joyous. It's an absolute no-brainer. So then we all have to ask ourselves, then what is the compulsion to want to let this person know that they didn't signal or they came too close to my car and bright them? And what is that compulsion? And that compulsion is the ego in us. And that's what, A Course in Miracles refers to, that we are put on this earth to overcome. And that is a part of forgiveness, but it's not I think it's more, I like to use the word transcendence as a deeper kind of forgiveness, which means that you're actually separating yourself from the physical existence, the egoic existence. You're kind of becoming an observer that rises above and says, well, that's a simple decision. I want to stay in peace.
Right.
And that's always the decision, yeah.
It is. Now, you talk about the Trinity of Forgiveness. Can you explain that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Great one. I'm glad you brought that up, because I wanted to make sure we got a chance to touch on that. I always say that this is a great book for starting drivers. If they even skim through this book, they'd be in such a better place to stay safe, stay out of trouble, realize that people are going to be impatient behind them when they're learning how to drive, and all of those things. But I always say that, right, parents, if you're buying it for your new driving teenager, please read chapter 9, which is about forgiveness. And basically, the Trinity of Forgiveness is a 3-step thing, which says, when something happens, and again, all of this can go from on the road or in life, but when something happens that you feel offended by, the very first thing in driving, a lot for most of us, I found through talking to so many people, is that ask yourself first before you respond, have you ever, and I capitalize, all caps, ever done that to anyone else behind the wheel, right? So ever means, yes, even when you were younger and a little faster driver and a little more audacious, have you ever? Because that might be the case with whoever did that to you. So if you've ever done that before, then who are you to judge? It almost becomes a religious, who's going to throw the first stone, right? So 90% of the time, the honest answer is, oh shoot, of course I've done that. I was late to the airport that one time, or I was younger, I used to drive like a knucklehead.
I do that actually. Exactly what you're saying. I do that same exact thing. When I'm behind someone going really slow and I'm feeling kind of frustrated because I can't get around them, or I'm getting off at the next exit, it doesn't make sense to go around them, but they're going so slow. And I ask myself, okay, how many times have I gone really slow for whatever reason? And I pull back, just relax. It's not that big of a deal. So that's excellent advice. You were about to say the next piece.
Well, good for you, Tami. That puts you in the very much minority of folks, and really that's what it takes. So kudos to you. The next one is, let's say that the answer is truly that no, I've never done that to anyone. That doesn't seem like anything. So then your task is to mentally find someone in your life who you love, cousins, uncles, whomever, that drive that way, or definitely have done something like that, or that exact thing, and ask yourself if you would give that person the any kind of a break for doing that. Let's say driving really slow in the left lane and not caring that you're holding up the people that want to pass. Well, my mom drives that way, right? So am I going to bright my mom and give her a hard time and then drive by her in a fast way to hopefully send her some kind of message? No, in fact, you do the opposite, and it's in my book. The opposite, you'd actually get mad at anyone that did do that to your mom when she was driving. So the second task then, if you haven't done it, is to simply think of someone that drives that way. And then I have a cousin who I know drives fast, and he's angry all the time. And to him, I love him to death. And I say, well, that's just my cousin. That's the way he drives, and I hope he stays out of trouble and matures a little bit. But I'm not going to sit here and hate him or get into a conflict with him, right?
Exactly.
So that's and that's the second. And the third one's kind of quick, and it goes back to a spiritual tenet, which we've touched upon, which is to simply rise above the situation altogether and put life in its proper category, which is that it's not anything that should be taking us out of our peace ever. That is what we're here to learn, is that, we'll be challenged, but if we can rise all the way above this, we'll realize that none of this is really happening except for our feelings and emotions, and those more important and closely related to love. That's what's real, not this frustration or challenge or anything.
I really do like how you can take these elements of driving and really relate them to the elements of living and the elements of being in a society where we're a part of humanity, and there's this back and forth energy between us and other people, and to really work on creating a sense of peace within ourselves, and hopefully, eventually, creating a sense of peace within our community, a sense of peace within our society. And it certainly makes sense for a young driver to read your book, to consider these, to become a responsible driver, one who does not have a major accident and kill someone or themselves. So beautiful. What is your mission as it relates to Drive Me to Think?
Yeah, I think you just touched on it perfectly. In fact, it is the twofold effect of using driving as a chance to practice forgiveness and replace anger with the law of attraction principles. If we do that, if the why is strong enough, meaning, well, what a great opportunity to think about the things, my goals and passions in life, and them actually manifesting, then what happens is this ripple of both peace, but also, because it's driving, it's safety. So there are commitments throughout the book that and there's not a lot of them, and they're quite simple, but a young reader or any reader would simply write in their version of that commitment to not driving distracted, to being forgiving, to taking these opportunities to remind yourself of rising above. And through those commitments, and with the why being strong, meaning, yes, things that you think about over and over again will start to manifest, that it's actually peace and safety that will spread across the community and hopefully even wider.
Oh, excellent. Now, where can people find your book and your blog?
Oh, great. So, yes, one and the same. It's very simple. You can get to the book and all the blog entries and all the information about me at drivemetothinc.com.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Ken, for being a guest on my show this week.
Thank you, Tami, for having me. I really enjoyed our time.
And thank you, listeners, for joining me here as well on Journey for Truth on Spreaker.com and on YouTube. Until next time, have a fantastic week.